Have you ever wondered if the history of science we learn in school is the whole story? What if some of the greatest breakthroughs were hidden, ridiculed, or even suppressed for years, decades, or even centuries? Today, we read diving deep into the shadows of scientific history to uncover the suppressed truths that eventually came to light and completely rewrote what we thought we knew about the universe and ourselves. Get ready because these stories are going to blow your mind. Let's start with a name you probably know: Nicolaus Copernicus. We credit him with the heliocentric model, the idea that the Earth revolves around the Sun. But was he the first? Not by a long shot. Travel back with me to ancient Greece, around 270 BC. A brilliant astronomer named Aristarchus of Samos proposed this exact same idea. He used clever geometry to estimate the sizes of the Sun and Moon, and concluded the Sun must be the center of our system. So why did it take nearly 1,800 years for this idea to stick? The problem was, his work went against the powerful teachings of Aristotle and Ptolemy, who championed a geocentric or Earth-centered universe. Their model just felt more intuitive after all. It looks like the sun moves across our sky. Aristarchus's ideas were dismissed, his writings were mostly lost, and humanity spent the next 2 millennia looking at the cosmos the wrong way. It wasn't until Copernicus dusted off these ancient ideas that the scientific revolution truly began. Imagine the progress we might have made if Aristarchus had been heard. Now for a story that hits a little closer to home: our own health. In the mid-19th century, hospitals were terrifyingly dangerous places. Mothers giving birth often died from something called childbed fever. Doctors had no idea what caused it. A Hungarian physician named Ignaz Semmelweis, working at Vienna General Hospital, noticed a grim pattern. The mortality rate in the ward attended by doctors and medical students was 5 times higher than in the ward attended by midwives. He observed that the doctors would often come straight from performing autopsies to delivering babies without washing their hands. Semmelweis hypothesized that cadaverous particles from the dead bodies were being transferred to the mothers, causing the fever. He instituted a mandatory hand-washing policy using a chlorine solution, and the death rate plummeted. A breakthrough, right? Wrong. The medical community was outraged. The idea that doctors, esteemed gentlemen, could be carriers of death was a personal insult. Semmelweis was ridiculed, his findings were rejected, and he was eventually fired. Heartbroken and frustrated, he was committed to a mental asylum, where he tragically died from an infection, the very kind of infection he had fought so hard to prevent. It was only years later, with Louis Pasteur's germ theory, that Semmelweis was finally vindicated as a hero who was tragically ahead of his time. His simple observation could have saved countless lives if only the establishment hadn't been so blinded by its own pride. Let's shift from medicine to the very ground beneath our feet. Today, the theory of plate tectonics, the idea that the Earth's crust is made of moving plates, is fundamental geology. But at the beginning of the 20th century, it was considered scientific heresy. In 1912, a German meteorologist and explorer named Alfred Wegener presented his theory of continental drift. He noticed that the coastlines of continents, like South America and Africa, fit together like puzzle pieces. He found matching fossil records and rock formations on continents separated by vast oceans. His evidence was compelling. He proposed that all continents were once part of a single supercontinent he called Pangaea. But the scientific community of his day laughed him out of the room. How could solid continents possibly plow through the ocean floor? Wegener, a meteorologist, was seen as an outsider meddling in geology. He couldn't provide a convincing mechanism for how the continents moved, and for the geologists of the time, that was a fatal flaw. Wegener died on an expedition in Greenland, his theory still ridiculed. It wasn't until the 1960s, with the discovery of seafloor spreading, that the mechanism was found. Wegener was right all along. The continents are indeed drifting, and his once-mocked theory is now the bedrock of modern geology. Our next story is about the very code of life itself, DNA. Watson and Crick are the famous names associated with discovering the double helix structure of DNA in 1953. But their discovery heavily relied on the crucial, and often uncredited work of a brilliant scientist named Rosalind Franklin. Franklin was an expert in X-ray crystallography, a technique used to create images of molecular structures. Working at King's College London, she and her student produced an incredibly clear X-ray image of a DNA molecule, famously known as Photo 51. This image was the key piece of evidence that revealed the helical shape of DNA. Here's where it gets controversial. Without Franklin's knowledge or permission, a colleague showed photo 51 to James Watson. Seeing that image was the aha moment for him and Francis Crick. It allowed them to build their now famous model. When they published their groundbreaking paper, they only vaguely acknowledged Franklin's contribution in a footnote. Watson, Crick, and Franklin's colleague went on to win the Nobel Prize in 1962. Rosalind Franklin, however, had died of cancer 4 years earlier, and Nobel Prizes are not awarded posthumously. For decades, her pivotal role was minimized, a classic case of a female scientist's work being overlooked in a male-dominated field. Today, we recognize her as an equal contributor to one of the most important discoveries in history. Finally, let's look at a discovery that challenges our understanding of human history. For a long time, the mainstream view was that the first humans arrived in the Americas around 13,000 years ago. This was known as the Clovis First model, based on distinctive stone tools found in Clovis, New Mexico. Any evidence suggesting an earlier arrival was fiercely dismissed by the archaeological establishment. It was dogma. Then came the Monteverde site in southern Chile. Archaeologist Tom Dillehay began excavating there in the 1970s and found well-preserved artifacts, stone tools, wooden structures, even a child's footprint that dated back to at least 14,500 years ago, a full millennium before the Clovis people. For years, Dillehay's findings were attacked and dismissed. Critics claimed the site was contaminated or the dating was wrong. The resistance was intense. It took over 20 years of meticulous research and defending his work before a group of prominent archaeologists finally visited the site in 1997 and confirmed his findings. The Clovis First barrier was officially broken. The discovery at Monteverde completely rewrote the timeline of human migration to the Americas, pushing it back thousands of years and opening the door for new theories about how and when the first people arrived. These stories show us a powerful lesson. Science isn't just a straight line of progress. It's a human endeavor, filled with bias, pride, and resistance to change. New ideas, especially those that challenge the status quo, are often met with skepticism and hostility. But they also show us the incredible power of perseverance and evidence. The truth, ultimately, has a way of coming out. It reminds us to always stay curious, to question assumptions, and to be open to ideas that might seem radical today but could become the accepted science of tomorrow. What suppressed truths are out there right now, just waiting for their moment? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through scientific history. If you found these stories as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our world. And let me know in the comments which of these stories shocked you the most. Until next time, stay curious.